Hey there, Goa fans. This is Mark DJ Solitaire here with episode 127 of Retro Goa Explorations, my weekly or nearly weekly series in which I present in every episode one of my favorite tracks from the 1990s Goa Trance psychedelic dance movement. So, this is an artist today that I have featured in a collaboration, but not his solo work. And it's really important that I do because we're talking like one awesome producer and composer. And I am not sure if I got this track in the first part of 97 or the latter part of 97. So, right now we're in sort of the autumn of 97 through to summer of 98 period. I might have gotten this track slightly before that, and I'm not sure. But when I was looking back, I was like, oh no, I kind of need to feature this track because this was my introduction to this artist. And I really fell in love with his really big, dramatic, orchestral style. And I'm talking about the German producer Tim Schuldt. A few episodes ago, I featured his collaboration with, I think it was the Delta. Certainly Marcus was in there. The Groupie Syndrome, that unbelievable track, Pacemaker. When I first came across Tim Schultz's music, there was a couple of tracks that came to me, but the one that I really remember was a Matsuri single. The single was called Animatronic, and that was one track, but it was the other side, Inner Child, that really hit me. So, again, this was released at some point in 97. I started receiving Matsuri promos probably, mid 97 or so, May-ish. So I might have received this vinyl around that time. It might have been a little later because this was a vinyl only track. And it is really quite an incredible one. Now, Schultz comes from a background that's pretty varied, rock, grunge, industrial, techno kind of thing. And he's a guitarist. And so, we certainly heard that guitar in Pacemaker. But what we get really is in all of his music. There's rich harmonies. It's not just exclusively that techno hard edge kind of thing. So this is something that I really appreciate because if you had that sort of metal and industrial background, you're not necessarily expecting some of those grand, dramatic, melodic lines. But we do have that. And it is one of the real hallmarks of his music. And I think one of the real hooks for me. Now, I've got a classical background. Sometimes there's some modulations and so on that don't really fit with classical theory. And it really depends on the track. If I'm going to, if there's enough other stuff going on for it, then I'll play it. If there's modulations that are really off, I just won't do it. And with Tim Schultz, there's sometimes some, interesting shifts in key and sort of part of the exposition. But what really catches me is the drama, that space opera kind of thing. I mean, there is really something Wagnerian about this. Like, we're not talking, everything's on a big scale, like Wagner operas. Those ones, the average opera is like 2 hours. Wagner ones are like 3 to 4 hours, right? So the average track is like, and Goa Trance is like 6, 7, 8 minutes, and Tim Schultz ones are like 10 minutes or so, right? So there's that drama, but also, similarly, that big orchestral, full power atmosphere, which really reminds me of that kind of thing. And it's not like it's on a big canvas. It's not even on a canvas. Literally, like talking, you're in fully immersed in this multi-dimensional setting. So really, really brilliant music making. And I think a really key sound for the nighttime aspect of the journey of this kind of music. And so it's really taken me a little too long, in fact, to feature him as a solo artist. And I'm really glad to be doing that with this particular track. So, given that it's a pretty long track and don't really have much else to say, I'll have lots to say. while we're listening. Let's give this one a listen. So I am going to cue it up here, and we are going to listen to Tim Schuldt's really beautiful and powerful and expansive and explosive Inner Child. So I really like this soft, evocative sonority in the introduction. Always love choral voices. The way those two beautiful sounds, both of them, the way they work together. Powerful slide there. Fantastic sonorities. And then fantastic bass line. Really incredible sounds, right? So some really cyber stuff, but also, you know, that operatic quality with that chorus. And then some interesting laughs there. And then, what a kick. And it comes with that other sound. So this one, not explicitly voices, but voice-like. Right, this real exclamation, right? And that repetition, very common in German music, but other one as well, where it has that really operatic quality. So you get yourself into this hypnotic loop. Breaking the pattern there with the chorus dropping out. Wonderful gated voices. And again, there's a call and answer. It goes up. Seems to answer from above. And that massive kick just, it really keeps the sonic framework wide and open. Around, you know, just to get that repetition going and get you sort of fully hypnotized and immersed. Here we start getting at this, you know, you got all this big drama and hard stuff, and then you've got, whoa, here we're tugging on the heartstrings with these harmonies. Doubling up those very cool percussive elements. This is just absolutely like hyperdrive shooting through space, and this is really like, you know, the anguish coming from the soul here. And with the title like Inner Child, I mean, you know, what kind of emotional stuff are we releasing in this cathartic process dancing to this music? Up an octave. We get that chorus coming back with this evolution of that melodic riff. Just beautiful. And again, you know, that really strong, powerful kick, while there's this absolutely gorgeous, heart-wrenching kind of melodic aspect going on. Another evolution of it here. Another wonderful little break here, so you just get that, you know, percussive element with this beautiful voice again, and then this key shift. Not really a key shift, right? But the melody sort of shifts down. clever with a half tempo kick and that sort of more sinewy, whiny kind of sound. Also very clever use of percussion. And you know, these are the necessary breaks when you're storming so much in this music. And again, those wild and crazy laughs. Then it's going to get explosive very quickly again. Really wonderful, just the way, again, you know, after all that melodic stuff, it just gets stripped down to the kick and this guttural kind of sound. And the chorus is back. So then now we have a different harmonic presentation over here, right? So this is like this big climactic section here. Then repeating it with some duplication. We start getting some interesting key shifts, right? And notice how after that intensity and the drama there, now we're back into that softer, beautiful aspect here. And we get a shift there. And now those voices as well on that upper level. Another shift. And a shift down again. I love the way there's that lyrical legato singing while there was those more articulated passages, and then doubled up the octave. We're back to the chorus with that exclamation. And those gated voices. Drops out, just has some of that rumbling underneath. And it's quite a long outro and really well structured, right, to really allow for some really smooth mixing and transition. And again, it continues through, right, all those 8-bar sections. I mean, really. Even though I never heard that in Japan in my first series, like my first, couple of years of partying there. This is the kind of sound and power that I remember, especially when Cooney was playing at those Equinox parties. This is a real 3 o'clock in the morning kind of sound for me, like outdoors. So you're in the depth of the darkness, your things are really peaking and getting more and more intense. And there's all kinds of different flavors that work at nighttime, right? Because there still is that really electrifying, uplifting, celebratory nighttime stuff. This is where things really turn inwards before at that dark point before there starts being this transition into the light. And this is just the epitome of the kind of tracks that I think are really required at that time. So I was a huge fan of Tim Schuldt for producing this particular kind with this unique blend, as I've talked about several times in the series. Part of the human experience being a contrasting blend of emotions simultaneously. We have different kinds of emotions, right? So we can be ecstatic and expressive while also having some anguish or, some confusion or some doubts or whatever the case may be. Humans do experience more than one thing at a time. And music like this, with that grand dramatic beauty, with those powerful exclamations, with those laughs and that beautiful chorus, and yet those, sleek, elegant, beautiful, heart wrenching melodic lines. I mean, there's a whole blend going on here. And I think it's absolutely brilliant. And it's really part of that unique sound signature that Tim Schuldt brought into his tracks, and lots of them in his collaborative work and his solo projects. So this has long been a favorite. What's interesting for me is animatronic, the other side, that was the title track of the single, so that was intended to be the main track. For me, this is the main track. This is the one that I always gravitated towards. The other one is fantastic, absolutely. But I don't know what it was, whether it's, just the name Inner Child and what that represents, and, what we're all getting in touch with, getting more and more into our core as we go through these transformative dance experiences, or if it's just that real Wagnerian, dramatic, operatic, big scale, multi-dimensional aspect of this track. But whatever the case may be, hats off, Maestro Schuldt. And I'll sign off here so that you can hear the whole track without me talking over it. So I'm Mark, DJ Solitaire, wrapping up episode 127 of Retro Goa Explorations, and leaving you now with the titanic creation by Tim Schuldt, Inner Child.